Another day, another story. Warsaw, Poland, AP. The German government says it is cracking down on irregular migration and crime following recent extremist attacks, and plans to extend temporary border controls to all 9 of its frontiers next week. Last month, a deadly knife attack by a Syrian asylum seeker in Solingen killed 3 people. The perpetrator claimed to be inspired by the Islamic State group. Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. In June, a knife attack by an Afghan immigrant left a police officer dead and 4 other people wounded. The border closures are set to last 6 months and are threatening to test European unity. Most of Germany's neighbors are fellow members of the European Union, a 27-country bloc based on the principles of free trade and travel. In Germany, the EU's economic motor in the heart of Europe, shares more borders with other countries than any other member state. The Polish Prime Minister on Tuesday denounced the closures as unacceptable, and Austria said it won't accept migrants rejected by Germany. Here's a look at some of the issues. How do Europeans travel currently? The EU bloc has a visa-free travel area known as Schengen that allows citizens of most EU countries to travel easily across borders for work and pleasure. Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland also belong to Schengen even though they are not EU members. According to the EU, member states are allowed to temporarily reintroduce controls at the EU's so-called internal borders in case of a serious threat, such as one to internal security. But it also says border controls should be applied as a last resort in exceptional situations, and must be time-limited. Such limitations are often put in place during major sporting events, including the recent Olympic Games in Paris and the European Soccer Championship this summer. What's Germany doing now? 9 countries border Germany and all are part of Schengen. Germany already imposed restrictions last year at its borders with Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria and Switzerland. Germany's Interior Ministry on Monday ordered the extension of checks at those borders, as well as controls at borders with France, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Belgium and Denmark. Interior Minister Nancy Faeser said the aim was to limit irregular migration and protect the nation from the acute dangers posed by Islamist terrorism and serious crime. Growing backlash against migration. The government and many Germans welcomed refugees fleeing conflicts in Syria and elsewhere from 2015-16, when more than 1 million asylum seekers entered the country. But as large-scale migration to Europe continues nearly a decade later, a backlash is fueling the growth of far-right parties. Some people say social services are overwhelmed, and extremist attacks by asylum seekers have led to security fears. It has added up to growing support for firmer immigration policies, and in some cases, backing for the far-right parties that champion such limits. The unpopular coalition government of Chancellor Olaf Scholz is trying to crack down on irregular immigration after the far-right did well in 2 recent state elections in eastern Germany. Another comes September 22 in Brandenburg, the state surrounding Berlin. Economic worries. As the EU's largest economy, Germany is a key trading partner for neighbors. The Interior Ministry's announcement has prompted economic worries for the main Dutch transportation lobby group, the Dutch Association for Transport and Logistics. It said the decision was undermining the Schengen principle of free trade and it fears major economic damage. At home, Germany's DSLV Logistics and Freight Association urged a selective approach that would spare trucks moving goods across borders, which would mirror what occurred during the European Soccer Championships. Those checks avoided economic disruptions because officials focused on individuals and not trucks, the association said. Dirk Jandura, the president of the Federation of German Wholesale, Foreign Trade and Services, said in a statement to the Associated Press that restrictions on the free movement of people always mean delays and thus cost increases for the economy and especially for wholesale and foreign trade. He added, however, if migration policy findings require restrictive measures, then this is understandable. For us, it is important to implement the measures with a sense of proportion. political repercussions. The ruling conservative government in Austria, which is facing a tight race against the far-right party in an election this month, says it will not accept refugees who are turned back from Germany. Interior Minister Gerhard Karner told reporters that Germany has the right to send people back if another EU country is responsible for their asylum application. But that would require a formal procedure and the consent of the member state concerned. Meanwhile, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk called Germany's plan unacceptable and called for urgent consultations by all countries affected. Poland has struggled with a migration crisis on its border with Belarus since 2021. Warsaw accuses Belarus and Russia of luring migrants from the Middle East and Africa there to destabilize the West. Agnieszka Lada-Konfel, deputy director of the German Institute of Polish Affairs, said random checks at the German-Polish border create traffic jams that make it more difficult for people to cross for work and discourage Germans from shopping in Poland. Poles also argue that Germany first introduced a policy of openness to refugees but is now pushing them back to Poland. Due to the negative perception of the influx of migrants in Poland, any report of migrants being returned by Germany also negatively affects Polish-German relations and Germany's image in Poland, Lada-Konfel told the AP. But in the Netherlands, where the anti-immigration Party for Freedom won last year's election, the Minister for Asylum and Migration pledged to step up Dutch border controls as well. Slovenia, Austria and Italy also have extended temporary border controls in some areas or all along their frontiers. Germany's government presented a plan on Tuesday to implement more rigorously European rules on asylum that would see more people turned away at its borders, a day after it announced it would start carrying out controls on all its land borders. The proposals include detaining asylum seekers while authorities determine whether Germany is responsible for processing their case with the help of Europe's shared fingerprint database, Eurodac, amongst other tools, Interior Minister Nancy Faeser told a news conference. "We want people whose asylum procedure is the responsibility of another EU country to be sent back there," Faeser said. The measures reflect Germany's hardening stance on immigration in the wake of high arrivals of asylum seekers from both the Middle East and Ukraine, which could strain relations with other European states. "We will approach our European partners at a high political level to ensure that they give their approval for readmission to the respective countries more quickly so that the European rules are complied with," Faeser said. Yet Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk earlier on Tuesday already criticized Germany's tighter border controls, calling for urgent consultations with other affected countries and more support for Warsaw's own immigration policies. Berlin says it must tackle irregular migration due to overburdened public services and to protect the public from threats such as Islamist extremism. Recent deadly knife attacks in which the suspects were asylum seekers have stoked concerns over immigration. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility for a knife attack in the western city of Solingen that killed 3 people in August. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.